Yesterday, I published a video discussing YouTube's new decision to ban and remove specific videos that gave what they called false and misleading opinions concerning the outcome of the most recent election. I made the argument that the way that we can know what type of facts that we're allowed to talk about and what type of facts that we're not allowed to talk about ultimately come down to the preference of the people who have the most power. In response to the arguments that I put forth in that video, so far I've only been met with one main objection that I've received in more than a few comments. Here's a few comments from people articulating the objection. I don't think YouTube is being arbitrary. A flat earth video is inconsequential as compared to people who deny election results and threaten civil wars. Just saying. I understand what you're saying, but I also understand why YouTube is banning Trump videos. The voter, and probably can't say that word without getting flagged, videos are causing too much division in our country and in some cases death threats against election officials. Speaking of, do you guys have any idea how many death threats I've gotten since I've started this channel? Trust me, YouTube does not care about that. I think the difference is this: spreading the blank blank message is inciting civil strife in America and threats of harm to innocent people. It is also making this country look foolish among other nations. People are threatening one another in social media on an issue, so something needs to be done. Yes, the answer for why they're doing this is simple, which is why I'm surprised that you missed the mark completely. Misinformation on biology or flat earth is way less harmful than the misinformation on the election. YouTube doesn't want to participate in platforming such a noticeable and harmful narrative, so they won't. Of course, this is for the benefit of the company and not out of any altruism they hold, but that's just the nature of running a company. The idea that YouTube simply likes facts on the election more than facts on biology is just straight up dumb. So as you just heard, the objection is basically that the reason why the platform decided to remove the false information about the election was because it could potentially cause civil unrest and civil tension. So the main objection was one that I anticipated and responded to in the video, but before uploading it, I decided to go ahead and remove it at the last minute because it seemed to make the video drag on a bit too much. Now, here's the clip that I recorded yesterday responding to this objection. What makes the facts about things like the election superior to facts about things like biology? The best I can think of right now is that they may say something along the lines of allowing misinformation about the election could potentially incite some form of violence because people will be extremely triggered if they feel like the election was rigged and they may lash out or get upset. But if that's the case, then it's really not ultimately about the facts at all. It's really just about public safety, which may be a legitimate concern, but if so, it's not about the facts. And if it is about public safety, then what are we supposed to do with all of the other videos that contributed to people getting so worked up and upset about the George Floyd situation that they decided to go out and riot and burn down their cities? Now, I think that that's a fair question, and I'd be curious to see how they decide to handle videos about social justice issues from now on, given that if anything could be proven to lead to civil unrest, it's those videos. If the issue truly is about public safety, then we should go ahead and expect for those videos to be taken down going forward as well. Now, to this point, I expect people to push back and then start returning to saying that it really is about the facts. But if so, then we're right back to my first point that I made in the video yesterday. In the video, I asked the question why we're not allowed to talk about some facts that go against people's feelings and social narratives, such as biological facts concerning gender. To that, some people said that it's because the facts about biology don't affect anyone else, where facts about the election do. Ironically, I also anticipated this response and also removed the response from the last video as well. But here's what I said in response to that objection. But if they decide to return the facts and they say that it really is about the facts, and the reason why it's different is because some people might say that it's because things like gender, they don't affect anyone else. So therefore, it's different when it comes to something like the election that affects a lot more people. And I would be inclined to agree with that statement if it were true. But the truth is, it really does affect other people. If it didn't, then why is everyone else forced to validate how some people feel inside? And even more, why is everyone else obligated to validate how they feel, or they risk being fired from their job or losing their business? It sure does seem to me like it really does affect other people after all. So now when it comes to politics in this election, I don't have too much of a dog in the fight. My business is first and foremost to Christ and getting out the message of the gospel to the rest of the world. So now dealing with YouTube and the hypocrisy of big tech isn't a hill that I really care to die on, to be honest. But that does lead to the question of what are we supposed to do with all of this as Christians? When it comes to a practical solution for the practical aspect, I just don't know, because social media has turned into a monster that I'm not sure that many people actually anticipated. And really, who knows how bad things could get at this point. One thing that keeps coming back to mind is a passage in 1 Peter 2 where Peter writes, "To this you were called because Christ suffered for you, leaving you an example that you should follow in his steps. He committed no sin, and no deceit was found in his mouth. When they hurled insults at him, he did not retaliate. When he suffered, he made no threats. Instead, he entrusted himself to the one who judges justly." And in the next chapter is where he goes to the verse that I actually have printed on my shirts. And in that passage, he says, "Who is going to harm you if you are eager to do good? But even if you should suffer for what is right, you are blessed. Do not fear their threats. Do not be frightened." And that's how I think we should approach whatever happens and whatever situations that we find ourselves in. No matter what comes, we have hope in any and all circumstances. Even if the worst conceivable scenario were to come tomorrow, we know that we'll continue to do our best to love God and love others, and continue to serve God and continue to serve others. And the scriptures on my shirt is meant to convey exactly that point as a reminder. So the next time you find yourself getting a lot of anxiety and forgetting that we were actually made for another world, what are you going to say?
What art thou mean?